You know life can be reframed? Did you know that? Did you know that? This is like a Naval, like, happiness is a skill. You can practice it. Like, no matter what your circumstances, like, you can practice to be happy. It's the reason he says, like, well, if you're so smart, why aren't you happy? You can reframe everything.
Welcome to the Smart Nonsense Podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, and challenging norms. Today, it is day 2, take number 3 of the book, Alchemy, the Dark Art and Curious Science of Creating Magic in Brands, Business, and Life.
Wow, he did the same thing yesterday.
See, I couldn't tell if it read like a book or if it
Oh,
went
that's
down.
a great point.
It really screwed me right there.
That's a great point. The cover is like 4 quadrants. Oh, you know what? Well, you could read it any way you want, but the book is about the 4 quadrants.
Hey, that's the thing. They can see what I'm seeing on YouTube. Look at that.
All right, go watch us on YouTube. Subscribe. It's still in Jardon, right?
Yeah.
Are they going to find it with Smart Nonsense? I think they have to search
If you search Smart Nonsense, I think we're dope enough. Where
if we put the tags, who knows?
I don't know.
We're back. Do we even talk about what happened yesterday, or do we just
Dude, I might start shaking and sweating if we do. I don't know how much we get into it, but yesterday.
Did you upload yesterday's stuff?
No.
Oh, you should, because we should like put in some clips. It's hilarious.
We'll put in some clips. It was just, I don't know what that was. It was 5 minutes. First 5 minutes, they were dope. We were off rolling real hot. And then I felt like a risk taker. I got greedy and I'm like, let me try this thing that I've only been cooking up in my head. Never really verbalized it.
This is great. And I was thinking about it more. First of all, we're going to play some of that. So I guess that'll go here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but we're back. This is great because I think it plays on this point where like you can read a ton, you can consume a ton, you can like get these epiphanies like you did, you can like whatever, and you tried to test it out on me, and I don't think you really knew at first principles what you were trying to talk about.
That's the Feynman shit.
Right. Well, that's also the beauty of doing this is Naval says like you're just a monkey with some thoughts, and articulating them or writing them or tweeting them, whatever is what makes you fill in the gaps in your reasoning. And I guess instead of filling in gaps, we just shut down. But
So this is what we're going to do. At the end of this podcast, I'm going to give it another go. We're going to go for it.
Oh, no.
Not now. I don't want to ruin the podcast like 5 minutes in and then it scraps a whole day. We're going to do it at the end. So wait, you can see if you solve the logic problem, if I say it correctly, which I think I will this time.
You got it? Been practicing all day.
I wrote it down.
It also
It's
failed
right
on
there.
David last night.
It kind of worked on
More or
David.
less.
It's getting there. All right. So moonshot, not moonshots.
Moonshot.
I got moonshots written really big.
Hold on. Who is this for? Who is this book
For
for?
the moonshotter. It's for.
The Alchemist.
It's for anyone. Here's the thing. I think if anyone needs it, it's engineers.
Okay. That's different from yesterday.
New podcast, new day, baby.
New takes.
Well, because
You
this
reread it.
is the case, right? Everyone's let me tie it to moonshots. Look at this. Everyone's looking for that moonshot, right? Google has their, I think it's called
Moonshot.
Google X,
Well,
where
yeah.
it's like,
It used to be called Moonshot.
how do we 10x whatever the technology is right now? So say it's travel. How do we 10x travel? Maybe it's a hyperloop or something or something like that. It's just super hard, super costly to do. The technology sometimes doesn't even exist. So it's just super, it's a really high bar. So basically the easier version is not changing the actual product itself. It's changing its perception.
Right. So I was going to pitch this as a book to like people in marketing.
Yeah, I mean, they
Like-
need it to be better marketers, but they already implicitly understand a lot of these topics.
True.
Because
That's
the idea,
good work.
for example, the company that I'm working for right now, we have this mental block. The person creating the product has this mental block of an online course. My online course is not worth $1,000 because we've only charged like $300, $400 in the past.
Stupid.
We can't double the price.
Stupid.
But
Sorry.
what is that? Oh shit.
Yeah. So there's that fable or anecdote about like the woman who couldn't sell anything at the store, right? And her boss told her, you know what, just like cut all the prices in
Oh, that
half.
wasn't that was a real deal
real story.
shit.
Real story.
Maybe that was from Influence, or no, it was from Irrationally, Predictably Irrational.
Predictably
maybe?
irrational.
Really?
But anyways, she missed the memo and things weren't selling, right? She misses the memo. Instead of having the price, she doubles it. And
And
in
then it
doing
sells
so, it sells out. It's just like people aren't rational.
Yeah, and they make all these little heuristic judgments of like, oh, if it's twice the price now, if it's more expensive, it's got to be valuable. And then they even if it's not, they will think it. And there's a bunch of checkpoints, but like placebo is one of them that I want to get into. Placebo is so powerful, yet so underused. It's
Utilized.
actually interesting point. While we're on placebo, Rory's like, there's so much that goes into drug efficacy and like making the best drugs. R&D is like billions of dollars when you're making a new drug, but there's very little research into how to make more effective placebos. In terms of because basically you're convincing your body, like your body back on the savannah. It's like, I'm not ready to repair. Like it's still in constant threat mode. So it needs to be convinced that it's safe.
Right.
And now you can recover.
I was going to add, like, the fact of the matter is placebos work.
They work really well.
Right.
And there are ways to make them work better. That's the point. So you can significantly improve the efficacy of a drug. Say it's ibuprofen, for example. If you just have ibuprofen, Belky's snapping his neck left and right.
Snapping.
If you have ibuprofen, say on the counter, and like you have a neck issue, generic ibuprofen, you take it, you think it's going to work well. It'll like, now you're psychologically, your body, like immune system kicks into action. That's how it actually works. But if you're like, this is ibuprofen for neck problems on the label, you're like, oh shit, this really works because it's hyper focused, but it's the same ibuprofen. All you did was change the label. And you can do different things. Like I know with Tide Pods at home, like, you know how it's the little pod, but it has different compartments with different colors. I'm like, this shit does something.
Right. Like,
why else would they make it?
And the example in the book was, I think, toothpaste with stripes.
Right.
Serves no purpose.
So
the different
pretty.
colors, no purpose. It makes you think there's like these different magical components you're consuming.
I was
soap with suds. That's another.
You know
one
what? Let's not have any sort of outline
structure.
So here's the structure that I'm going to
By the way, you love this book. I really didn't. I really didn't like this book.
Wait. Tell me why.
I realized why this morning. Naval in his almanac, not he was saying it, the author was, this is one of those books where like I didn't like it in the first 10% of the book. I should have just gotten rid of it because he's like, there are so many books in the world and he feels like so many books make one point and then just example after example after example. And I know you liked the examples here. I was like, I got the point in the first chapter and then I couldn't hear the examples because the wind in the city was just so loud in my ears. And it's mostly my fault, but
I don't know. It's just so good. And it's not about the same, like, for example, the 80-20 principle. That whole book is just the same principle, different examples. This is different. This talks about so many different.
True.
I mean, it all gets back to like everything's in your head. How do we improve that? That's the underlying theme. But there are just so many different facets of how to do it, and
I've just read so many like human beings are irrational books, and this felt like another one of those.
What I like is that thing I was talking about earlier, where it's like you don't change the product itself, you change its perception. So, just like example after example, just nails it for me. But like,
what were some? So a couple things didn't come through. I don't know if you got it in reading again, but audibly there was the chapter on like nonsense versus nonsense versus I don't know, and it all sounded the same listening to the book. Maybe it's not a point.
Maybe you just didn't listen to the book.
I did.
Actually, that's kind of funny. Yesterday, we had all these gripes about like, did we read the same goddamn book?
Because throughout the week, we were just bringing up completely different things that the other person had not heard.
It's so funny too, because you hated this book. I loved it. It's like every signal is we didn't read the same book. But maybe it's me. I just love the creative solutions aspect. And it's just example after example after example of cool creative solutions. For example, well, we talked about the average yesterday, designing for average. Maybe we cover that briefly right now. But man, I wish the first 5 minutes of that podcast was so good. But okay, average, like people designing for average.
Oh yeah, this was good. Good work.
It's like, say you have a business, and I'll get into the example that they use in the book, but say you have a business and you're trying to design for your average customer, which who knows, maybe it's like combining a 20-year-old male with a 45-year-old married
like
woman.
imagine you're designing jackets or something, right?
Yeah.
And you just take like the most
or never split the difference. You remember that? Where it's like, you don't want to split the difference, because guess what? If you take the average of a brown pair of shoe and a black pair of shoe, you just get one brown and one black.
Pair of
Pair of shoes?
I don't know. I think it's one or the other. You mixed them. Pairs.
Is that really you're gonna
But
bring?
yeah, okay, sorry. I cut you off.
Well, the
Splitting
point
the
is you
difference
get
between
shit.
one black shoe and one brown shoe is your shoes aren't going to match.
Right. So you got to pick one or the other. And the study it talks about is in the 1950s, the U.S. Air Force was trying to redesign the cockpit because now we have these jets coming into action. We have a larger military than ever before. They have like 4,000 people or something. So how do we design the perfect cockpit for the wide array of body types getting in? They're like, well, let's just look at all the pilots. We'll try and measure across 140 dimensions, like what the exact average is, and that'll be our cockpit. And then they do a couple mock-ups, throw some pilots in there, and it fit fucking no one. It's like, dude, this throttle, like I literally can't grab it. It's like this weird shape of whatever. The buttons don't fit, like nothing fit. And so the lesson is a lot of the time, I don't know if it's every time, but basically you don't want to design for the average because that's just going to give you
know
a
what's
shit
even
solution.
worse? There's that example. I was listening to this podcast called, I think, Invisible City. But it was this episode on feminism. What's even worse than that is those things were designed for the average man. Right? So now imagine putting a woman in that cockpit, or crash test dummies, for instance, are like some average everything of the man. So actually cars aren't as safe for women.
So I guess you just got to split it up. And we didn't have a good concrete solution
What if
yesterday.
we had
but
women's cars and men's cars? That'd be a lot of R&D. Forget it. You know why I didn't like this book? It just goes. So if we think about those four quadrants, it's things that make sense and work in one quadrant.
which is like engineering solutions.
Yeah. And I exist there, which is a
Okay.
problem.
You got Belky earlier today. He was like, "Dude, look at me and my tool belt."
Yeah.
It was
Should I
the
put it on? You said,
uh,
why did you go to college? I was like, yeah, I don't know. So you have things that make sense and work. You have things that make sense and don't work. You have things that don't make sense and work. Man, I had coffee. You have things that don't make sense and they don't
Hey,
work.
we'll make a graphic on YouTube.
Do it.
Hey, look
Please
at that.
help them out because I'm not going to run it back. As a physicist, I found when reading this book, everything about like Newtonian physics, classical physics exists in that makes sense and works area. And I'm like, man, I'm a Newtonian physicist. That stuff, I just get it. Geometry, what are the other forms of math? Algebra, trigonometry, like I get those. Now, quantum mechanics, right, doesn't make sense and works. And that was always where I just like my brain blew up.
And so your brain blew up with this book.
Yeah, because it's all about things that don't make sense and work.
A lot of it makes sense though. There are two.
Wait, one really good quote.
Okay.
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 One really good quote along in that topic is he says the opposite of a good thing. The opposite of a good idea can be a good idea. What? I don't do that. I don't.
That shit is brilliant though. And
I know.
Okay, so the example for that comes to mind for me, at least from the book, is Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
Compare it to Coke. Coke tastes delicious. It's in a pretty big can. Like it's got brand legacy. Everything's there. And then you come in with Red Bull, this new company. And when they did taste tests, everyone's like, this tastes fucking horrid. Like this is the worst thing I've ever tasted. Oh, and then they're like, guess what? A Coke's like $1.50. Let's charge $3-4 for this Red Bull. And guess what? The can is smaller than a Coke can. It's literally like the opposite of everything. And so what happens is now your placebo that we were talking about before just has to kick into action. You're like, it tastes like shit. Why am I drinking it? Let me just backwards rationalize. It has to be doing something powerful for me. It has to be getting me so
you've got
excited.
wings, baby.
It's crazy. And like no one would have invested in this. Rory even says, the author, he's like, there's not a chance I would have invested in this just because it's like so counterintuitive. Even he.
Yeah, he gave a couple
wouldn't predict
examples.
it.
Like McDonald's had something similar. I forget the other two.
Well, McDonald's is different. McDonald's gets into the little Siobhan effect that we kind of talked about yesterday, where people are satisficers.
Mm.
And I think that's something.
Satisfice being satisfied and sufficing.
Yeah, it's like it's good enough.
Yeah.
People that are just happy with it, good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everywhere. There's like people, personality types, they're just like anti-risk. They're like, for example, I say the Siobhan effect because often we'll be in other countries doing crazy stuff. And Siobhan, our friend, I won't mention his real name. He just likes
That
he
is his
just
real
likes what
name.
he used to. Like he'll go to a KFC in China, or even actually good example when we were in Peru and we were in Cusco, we went and tried to eat this koi. This koi is like a little guinea pig, and we went to this restaurant. It was the freakiest restaurant. There was some like really loud, really strange like dance show on television. Just one dude eating, watching it. The person serving us had some sort of disability. I don't know what it was, but it was just a mess. It was freaky. The food was terrible. And we're like, should we stick it out for the koi? We want the koi. It's like a specialty. You'll never eat it anywhere else.
At this weird place.
And we finally caved and we went to McDonald's right down
we
the
didn't
street.
cave. We dined and dashed.
Yeah, we had to get
Only
out of
time
there.
I've ever done that. We left a little money. We left enough money, but then
It
were
was
we
so
can't-
bad.
We cannot stay.
But
here.
then we went. We're like, all right, we tested the craziest shit out there. But we just want the like safe satisficer
makes
shit.
sense. Works well. It satisfies. Yeah.
Like you're going into a McDonald's wherever you are in the world. You're not going to get food poisoning like we think we might have with the guinea pig. You're just going to get a good meal. It's not going to be the best meal, but it's going to be affordable. You know exactly what to expect.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are like that. A lot of companies are like that, where you're never, and I love this idea, but you're never going to get fired for making this logical decision.
Yeah.
It's like that was the like implied tagline of IBM was like, you're never going to get fired if you buy an IBM product or hire IBM, because just everyone knows they're IBM. They're not going to fuck up. Whereas if you take a risk and you're like, there's this new startup doing something crazy, like we were talking about Riverside for shooting podcasts. It's like, oh, they can do video and audio for guests, HD quality. That's amazing. But there's a risk because unlike Zoom, which is just proven, everyone uses it, you know it's going to work. The quality is a little bit shittier, but it's there. Riverside, we tried it, we failed, and it sucks. And if I had a boss who depended on this, I could likely get fired for that. We're just clowns though, and like, this makes no money. But people in companies today, they're not going to take that risk, even though the benefits would be optimal. Like if you look at the risk reward, like this is definitely the shit to do because long term it's going to be massively helpful for the company. Short term, they're just trying to preserve the job.
What are companies that are really good at that? I just keep thinking Apple.
Taking risks. Apple, Google, like we mentioned,
Yeah.
like they reserve their own.
Right.
This is our little testing ground.
Airbnb just
a lot of
launched
startups.
a nonprofit.
Apple,
Kind of unrelated.
So Apple, what they talked about in the book was how Jobs, he had his famous Stanford commencement address, which we mentioned before on like OG podcast. And he talks about at the end, he's like, stay hungry, stay foolish. That's his big push to all these young kids is just like, be foolish, like take those
Think
risks.
different.
Yeah. And the world today is just trying to beat that out. Like another example. It's just example after example.
know.
And I fucking love it.
That's why I hated it.
So it's like New York City, for example. I fly in there a good amount. And there's JFK and there's Newark. And Newark, objectively speaking, is closer to New York City.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've done both. It's closer. It's just faster. You're not going to have to worry about shit with immigration because no one goes there.
Right.
It's objectively a better place to fly into. But what happens if your flight to Newark gets delayed versus what happens if your flight to JFK gets delayed? Like if I'm your assistant, I'm like, oh, Henry, I just bought you a flight to Newark,
Mm-hmm.
and something happens to it. It's like, Dylan, why the fuck would you go through Newark? Just go through JFK. Everyone goes through JFK.
Oh, so you're saying it gets a bad rap because of when
Like
it fucks
if it
up at Newark?
when it fucks up,
it
it's super bad because you took a risk on not going to the default airport.
What's so bad about a delayed flight at Newark? Is it
Because you're already taking a risk. Like, oh, but you booked me through Newark. Why would you do that first? That's the first question. Like, why don't you just go through JFK? Oh, well, it's actually better.
you said it's faster, less crowd. Like in every way it's better.
Yeah.
So I'm confused
But-
what happens when you're delayed there. Is it
It's-
hard to get into the city?
It's like the same thing with Riverside or Zoom. Like, if I'm like, yeah, let's use Riverside. Let's use Riverside. It's objectively better, but then it fucks up.
Oh.
You're like, Zoom never would have fucked up.
Yeah.
Whereas JFK will still fuck up, but like people just like the whole world goes through JFK. So they'll
So you
just
do
write it off.
My mom's super like that. She's just like, for instance, my parents don't have a garbage disposal in the sink because when they had an apartment together, their sink clogged once and like they couldn't get a plumber for 3 days or something. That's it for garbage disposals. Like if you have a garbage disposal now, they say it gets clogged. I'm like, what? It just doesn't make sense. People aren't rational. I think also.
Well, hey, here's the point though. People are rational.
Right. I'm sorry. That's
okay. So her rationality,
rational.
her like formula is just, I want to minimize risk.
Right.
I want to minimize this black swan event where it gets clogged and it fucks up my whole week. And so she's just choosing the slightly shittier long-term solution, but she's got a different, not formula, but utility function or whatever you call it in classical economics.
Right. I'm like, we should revisit that utility function and redo the cost benefit analysis.
But that doesn't mean it's like, there are certain cases, for example, talking about airports, where like I fucked up in Argentina. We had an episode on that a couple ago where I missed my flight back because I tried to take the Uber suggested route. I'm like,
oh yeah, GPS.
Let's go through Uber. It's going to go through downtown, but this is the fastest route normally. Then I got hit with some crazy 2-hour traffic and I got completely fucked.
Right.
Whereas if I just went to like this bus station that took the back roads where there would never be any variance.
Right.
Like that's the thing. There's a lot of variance going through downtown because who knows? There's a fucking parade and now it's bumper to bumper traffic. I miss my flight. Whereas if you go on the back roads on the bus, you know you're going to get there maybe 30 minutes later, which is less efficient, like washing or throwing.
But when shit happens,
it goes bad.
Right.
And so your mom in that case is probably just trying to avoid the shit.
Worst case scenario. It gets to this point too where it's like, this is a huge problem I have. And every time we talk about opportunity cost, like this is what's happening is he says like you can tune people into their biases. That by no means is a solution to cure them of those biases. Like no matter how much we talk about opportunity cost or placebo or whatever, it's like I cannot kick it. I'm buying scratch off lottery tickets. I'm like, my expected values are just like wrong. I forget why that is the way it is, but like that's just the truth.
I mean, it's just human nature. That's the thing with all of this is like everyone's trying to be a robot, but we're not robots. We're monkeys that just evolved to be smart. But we still have all these monkey issues in our head, these psychological tricks that help us in certain cases. Like it's easy to make certain decisions that like a Google Maps couldn't. Because Rory's like, I just know to take the back roads. I was too stupid. But like most people just know to take the back roads if they have to be at a certain place at a certain exact time. Whereas like Google Maps is just going to send you right through the heart of the city because it's like technically faster.
On average, right? It's faster.
Pros and cons.
Right. I always use GPS for everywhere I'm going.
I know. I get really mad at my parents when they don't trust the GPS. I'm like, it's going to get us there. And they're like, I don't know if this is the right road. I'm like, it just works.
Yeah.
Just trust it.
Yeah.
Why do I say trust it though? Because I believe in brands. Look at this transition. So brands are cool because there's so many. That's why I love this book. It's just got everything. I mean, it's not organized in a way that's nice in my head, but it's just like so many cool nuggets everywhere. So brands are cool. And I want to say first, when we don't have brands, the shit that happens.
Okay.
So first, remember the hoverboards?
Oh yeah.
Could you hear this in the book or not?
Yeah, I did. About the batteries.
Hoverboards are cool because there was no like Apple hoverboard, or I don't know what brand would make a hoverboard. Like
Razer. Well, I think they did have one.
There was no just everyone. This is the go-to hoverboard.
Yeah.
It was all these like Chinese manufacturers making stuff, and they were all pretty much the same. It was hard to differentiate if you're going to get a shit one or a great one because there was no just brand identity behind them. So what happens is the hoverboard just flopped. It flopped because no one knew what to buy. And then you hear they start like catching fire.
Yeah.
And you have no idea which ones catch fire, which ones don't. And so you're just like, fuck it. I'm just not going to buy them. And I think,
well, not only that, but the government was like, you can't have them. Just ban them all.
Whereas if there was one brand that's like, hey, we're trusted already. We're getting into hoverboards.
There was at the exact same time, Samsung's phone. They had just released a phone that was blowing up in people's pockets and like catching fire. Now, just Samsung had that Galaxy phone. So they recalled them and, they go through the whole thing and Samsung still exists. But hoverboards don't, by and large.
Yeah. So that's like the failure of brands. There are some other cool failures that I like. It's like the Soviets back when they were making rivets for their ships. They were like, oh, no, we just have all our factories all around Russia, wherever it is. They're making these rivets. we don't need anything. Just throw them all in the pile and we'll separate them out.
Huh.
And the way they were compensated per se is just quantity of rivets output.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no brand to add that accountability because your rivet looks just like mine. So the best way to make a lot of rivets is to make a lot of shitty rivets.
Yeah.
And so now you have ships sinking left and right because there's just no reason to make a good rivet.
Yeah. There's
So
no quality control.
They realize they're like, all right, quality control. We're going to come and stamp the fuck out of these so that we can come back and be like, hey, factory in Belarus.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Because a brand is nothing. If its quality isn't what they say it is, they're nothing. So a brand by nature, by virtue, has to maintain quality control. And like in a perfectly competitive market, like you say, rivets or hoverboards, it's just chaos.
It's fucking funny. But then once you do hack it, like you do have a good brand, then you just reap all the benefits. Although one little fuck up can cost you significantly.
Exactly.
Like, for example, eBay, you probably get this.
Yeah. I hate eBay.
But all right, whatever review site, eBay is most notable in my mind because I can picture it. But like, say you've sold like 5,000 items and you get 100% reviews on all of them. Everyone's like, oh shit, Henry's a dope reseller, whatever you call that person. I'm going to go through him every time. And you're like, oh, well, if someone has like 95%, they'll probably just get like 5% less of the sales.
No.
Not at all.
No.
That's
Yeah.
just crazy. Can you even imagine below 90? Like if I see someone with like 88%, I'm like 1 in 12 or
I'm
whatever.
weird. I don't check ratings. You only buy things based on rating. You buy your Whole Foods stuff based on ratings. Your food.
I do
food
a
items.
one time. I mean, that's the thing though. People are just like, it's not this linear progression. It's like if you're 100% or 99, you get everything.
Yeah.
And below that, you're fucked.
It's fucked too that this is a brand and quality control. Like one bad review, whether it's because of quality control or actually poor product, that's a 5.0 to like a 4.9.
I know. I see this a lot on Yelp too. I was looking for accountants in New York City and I'm like, this one's got a 4.6 and that one's got a 4.7. I'm like, I'm definitely going for 4.7. And it's just like one review because the sample size is what? 40 reviews? Like just one different review can sway that.
Why don't I look? I think I just don't. I don't know. My standards, like I don't care. Most everything works for me. I just make it work. Is that? I don't know.
Just so much.
Hey, you are really good at finding restaurants when we're traveling on Google Maps and Yelp. Yeah, you find the best places.
Hey, I didn't even know. So there's a ton of shit. I mean,
is that it for brands?
Brands. Okay. Well, here's another one for brands. How about this?
Yeah.
Kind of brands and advertising. So advertising is just trying to establish you as a brand. Like, I love this advertising. Like, why advertise? Because, if an engineer is creating a good product, the people should just come to the best. But you do advertising because it implicitly signals to people. If they're spending money on ads, that means they're making money because they have a good product.
Which means, yeah.
And then it's just this weird like feedback loop of if it was a scam and it was a shitty product, they wouldn't make money off of us in the long term and they wouldn't afford advertisement. So it's like this necessary evil. It reminded me honestly of like with Bitcoin, how they have the proof of work and all these computers all over the world trying to prove these fake algorithms. You know
I don't
what
know
I mean?
about this. No.
No, we talked about it with Ian, where like the computers do these calculations to prove, to like put something in the blockchain.
Okay.
To prove that this is a transaction that it went through. I guess I don't understand it fully, but
okay.
Basically like they have to do all this shit. It's like wasted electricity because there's no need to do these calculations. But now you have computers all over the world doing all these nodes doing it. It's kind of the same thing. Like you just have to waste this money on advertising just to prove that you're not a fraud.
Yeah. People are so silly.
There are also fraudsters that like get away with it because of a one-time thing. Oh, this is cool too. Oh, I love the book. It's like, okay, it's much easier to trick 10 people one time than one person 10 times.
Oh, yeah.
But people are like, 10 times 1 is the same as 1 times 10.
No.
It's not. It's like,
I think the reference frame was gambling, right? You get someone to bet $10 million once, but not.
it was Russian roulette.
Yeah, Russian roulette.
It's like, hey, Henry,
yeah, right.
you want to play Russian roulette? I'll give you $10 million if you play once. You're like, all right, maybe.
We're talking Russian roulette with a gun, right? Like
Yeah.
gun to my head. There's a bullet in the barrel. What's that called? One in the
chamber.
There's one in the chamber.
Ooh,
And you say,
Call of Duty.
Henry, I'll give you $10 to pull the trigger. Sorry, $10 million to pull. I'm worth $10.
Right.
$10 million to pull the trigger. I'm like, oh, 1 in 6.
I mean, Henry probably wouldn't do it, but if you get 10 people, there's probably going to be
I don't
one
have
or two
much
crazy
money.
people.
Let's not.
Henry might do it.
I might do it.
Don't offer it. But if you're like, so you do that to 10 people, maybe 1 or 2 will do it. But if you take the same total pool of money, so 10 people times 10 million is 100 million. If you went to one person and you're like, hey, play Russian roulette 10 times and I'll give you $100 million. No one would fucking do that.
No, never.
Because there's only like 6 chambers. You're definitely going to die.
You're definitely going to die. However, you will definitely die. Okay. But I was thinking if it's a die roll, like a dice, not you're going to die. That's not, this is a bias people kind of screw up, which is like short-term probabilities don't actually follow like law of large numbers trends.
You gotta explain that.
So it would not be odd for me to flip 9 heads in a row in the short run.
Yeah.
Right? Like the coin does not remember what it flipped in the short run. It's not gonna after flipping 9 heads. So
it's the same thing though. There are 10 total flips here, 10 total flips there. I guess
that's the thing is Russian roulette's not a coin flip. There's literally 6.
It's like a dice roll or die roll.
No, because there's a bullet in the chamber and it goes around in a circle and you get 6. Forget it.
Oh, well, I was
that's what I'm
thinking
saying.
Reset it.
Another thing I liked, the trains. This applies to
I love the trains.
I was talking about this with my girlfriend because it was in some article she was reading for a class. Here's something super irrational, and it applies to our trekking too. People in New York City, for instance, they implemented signs on the train stops that said when trains were going to arrive and depart, whatever. And that turned out people preferred knowing when a train was going to show up. Let's say it says a train's going to show up in 8 minutes. They prefer that version of knowing to having the unknown, not knowing when it's going to come, and a train shows up in 20 seconds.
Right.
Which makes no sense, right? And it's the same thing with trekking. Like, it's so hard because of the unknown. You don't know how far you have to go.
Well, that's Roy's whole point is like to engineer the systems in place so that a train shows up every 20 seconds is insanely difficult, insanely expensive because you got to multiply the amount of trains by 24.
How'd you get that?
8 minutes divided by 20 seconds.
Oh, nice. We're going to fact check that because minutes don't go into tens. Or seconds don't go into minutes by tens.
You do it, mister. What is it? Astrophysics? Okay. My point is, it's a lot easier to just change that perception, and that makes the trip just more enjoyable for people. If you want to make the trip 10 times more enjoyable, it's a lot easier to do it by just putting up an ETA sign than actually changing the trains and how fast they run, how many of them there are.
Even if the ETA is 15 minutes.
This was a cool one, too.
It's cool.
Related to trains. There's a bunch... He must have worked on some train projects. But one with trains was like, they have this $100 million project. It would take 10 years and they want to add more trains so that you could have more running and just shorten the trip. Like it was a new, faster train too. And he's like, sure, you can do that and maybe shave off like 15 minutes from the total time from, I don't know, let's call it like London to...
Where do you want to go?
What's another place in London, in England?
I don't know.
Essex?
Sussex. Isn't it Sussex?
That's sus. I don't know. Some other place like an hour away, it shaves 15 minutes off. But he's like, well, let's think about this differently. And that's what I love. He just always tries to approach problems in a different manner than just the concrete. There's only one way. Make the trains faster. He's like, well, think about this. How much total time do people spend between leaving their house and going to their destination? Whereas like the engineer is just like, oh, when they're at the station and they get in the train, it takes them this much time. He's like, the total trip, let's look at the total trip. Well, what if, sure, we don't change the time it takes on the train, but we change the amount of time they have to wait for the train. And he does this not by adding more trains so that they come through faster. He's like, let's just allow them, because people, if they buy a ticket, they can only be on one train, which Also happened in Florence, and that's the reason why I had to buy 2 train tickets, because I got there and like, no, you missed it. That was yesterday. You fucked up. Buy another $150 train ticket. I'm like, So people show up early because they don't want to fuck up and miss their train. But what if you let people, maybe for like a small fee or something, if they showed up early, they could get on an earlier train, or if they showed up later, they can just get on the next train. And maybe it's like the one before, the one after. And that way people, they're not scared and want to show up. Like at the airport, I always show up like 3 hours before the flights now because I don't want to miss it like Argentina. But if I knew that I could just hop on another plane if I missed it.
Yeah. Did they implement that? That's chaos, I'm thinking.
It's not, because you could change the fee so that people aren't.
I know you could change the fee. People would be really upset on plane. They kind of had that where you can like get on standby for the plane if you're like super early.
But it's only if it's available, right? If you show up 15 minutes early.
So not everybody's flex?
It's flex if they're, you'd like be driving to the airport or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there are spots available and you could just buy it if you're going to show up early or you're going to show up late. They're just,
but some people
solutions.
Are fixed. Okay, yeah.
And that's just a simple, like there's some sort of algorithms that you make so that the marketplace works, and it would work. And you wouldn't have to spend anything other than just building the app. So I just love that creative problem solving. There's a ton of shit. There's a lot of shit with trains.
Yeah, why haven't people why haven't airlines like software-atized empty seats and standby lines and see if they can pull people from a later flight that are already in the airport and get them on that early?
That was one thing too. It was cool. I was listening to Rory Sutherland on Invest Like the Best on my way over here too. I can't listen to books because it's like too dense, but conversation, I can listen to it.
Same. I think the books on Audible are equalized differently too. It's really hard to hear on the road. Call Her Daddy, really easy to hear. And David Dobrik's, they're equal, like the EQ's up on the high end, and Call Her Daddy.
So here's the thing. He was talking about how like Amazon, you just buy a year membership, for example, and like you can buy all these products. I don't know exactly how it connected, but say like you bought a year membership to this hotel chain. Ice cream truck. It's just the dance studio. There's noise going on.
Dropped.
Whatever. Say you buy like a year membership to this hotel, and anytime there's a vacant room, you can just pop in there for free or at a reduced rate. It's like an annual membership to the hotel chain because they have all these vacant rooms all the time. I mean, our friend Jack, like his company rented out an entire hotel because of COVID.
Yeah, there's another one, a Brown alum who's friends with David, Daycation. It's kind of like that where you can buy like a pass to their amenities for the day if they have room.
Oh.
You can use the pool and stuff, and
kind of like that, but it's like an annual subscription, and you can just use their.
Yeah, I would do that for Hyatt. I love them.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't know why no one's done that. Who knows? Maybe it exists now. It was like a year or so ago that they dropped that.
Huh.
There's a lot of cool shit. One's framing. Okay, we'll start.
We got to do framing, and then we got to talk about the cards.
I know. All right, framing. I mean, framing.
Oh, framing is the cards. Sorry.
But
do you have anything else?
Well, framing.
Let me see if I got any quote nuggets.
You want a Bob Dylan quote nugget?
Oh, let's say them at the same time. 1, 2, 3.
Henry Ford.
Okay. Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan says, "Don't criticize what you don't understand."
I like that.
And I love that because I don't know, people are really judgy, and I feel like in conversation, people just judge things. And what I'm trying to do in conversation, this drives my family crazy. They label it as being concrete. I'm just trying to like get the facts. I'm like, I don't know that person, or I'm not going to cast it. Like, I'm not going to criticize here. Like, I want to know the first principles. What's going on here? And that drives them crazy. They just think I have no emotions.
Kind of similar quote. I don't know who said it, but it was later in the book. It's like this person shows up to this house, and in the middle of the driveway, there's just a fence going straight across it, or a gate, whatever it is. And he's like, I have no idea why that's there. Let's just tear it down. It's like, don't tear anything down until you know what it's for.
Yeah, 100%.
And people often, they're just like, oh, that looks silly. Oh, well, do you know its use?
Right.
Why it's there? And a lot of people don't. And then once you know, it's like, okay, that should be there. That's another one. It's kind of connected. Henry Ford. They had some consultant come in to Ford, and they're like looking around, and they see this one guy with his legs up on the table. Like, that dude's just chilling, lounging back, like me a lot of the time in the music box where I'm just staring at the ceiling doing nothing. They look at him and they're like, you're paying that man $50,000 a year.
Oh, that's a good one.
Why don't you just cut him, save all this money, And then you don't have this laziness. You want efficiency. And Henry Ford looks at the consultant. He's like, that man 3 years ago made one decision that saved me $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
And as I recall, his feet were in the exact same position. Dude, that shit is so badass.
There's like a Warren Buffett that's like, make one grand decision that'll make 10,000 decisions down
Right.
the line.
Tim Ferriss, too. It's like the one decision that makes the
that's
rest
what I meant.
Irrelevant.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with like Munger or Buffett. Is just a few decisions made super well
yeah.
is much better than a bunch of great ones or good ones.
Judgment, having good judgment. Naval's the same. He's like, that's the thing. If you're managing a sector of your business that generates, I don't know, $10 million, and you make a decision that's 10% better than something else, it's like that one decision is worth
Well, that's why
$1 million.
I would get fed up with everyone being like, oh, how do CEOs get paid so much? Because they're 1% better in decision making. Like Bezos right now, one better decision a year, and he will make a literal $1 billion.
Right. It's also not even 1% better. Their judgment, by and large, is better.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a crapshoot, but you're going off of their history or Rex.
Why don't we just have a little section where we give quotes? We just do like 5 quotes in a row.
Dude, that might be good. There's so much
and then we
shit
tweet
here.
them, and then we leverage them on Twitter. Should we talk about the new format? This podcast is changing.
No.
I emailed Seth.
I
CC'd you.
too.
I CC'd you. You love what?
Affordance. There's that cool shit of just like engineers. They're always trying to pack in features, but people don't want that. They just want simple shit. Like the Walkman's the example. They're like, the engineers, oh, we have the Walkman. We can add a recording function so you can play music and record music. But whoever the designer was, he was like, no, that's stupid. It's just going to confuse people. We're trying to innovate. And if we have too much complicated shit, they're not going to know what it's for. Like, do I play music? Do I record music? What the hell is this?
I think that's
Make
where
it simple.
I think that's where people get Amazon wrong, because I was about to hit you with the backlash. Well, Amazon does everything. They do a little bit of everything. No, they don't. Amazon does one thing, and it's shipping logistics. That's it. Simple. 2-day shipping, free. Like sorry, I'm holding fuzz. All the stuff they're selling, yeah, maybe it's different. Yeah, they're doing some rocket stuff, but like by and large, they're a shipping logistics company that probably minors in customer service. Simple.
I mean, Apple is just fucking simple shit. They don't try and do the crazy stuff. That's one thing with perception,
no, but they
right?
do.
I love perception.
We have smartphones because of Apple. I don't have anywhere to be, so if you want to just keep,
all right. So
this is
say
so
for
much
example,
better than yesterday.
This is kind of reframing, right? Wait till the end when I try and do this thing again. With reframing, it's for example, like I'm thinking the commute to the office. Like a lot of people are like, oh, commuting sucks. I love my commute every day, and you probably do too.
Yeah,
it's so much fun because I'm like bopping through the woods today. I did like a little field trip story on my Instagram. Just like I was just having a blast, listening to podcasts, just bopping on my Super 73.
Well, and I told you when I had a car for a while, you were like, why don't you just keep it? And I was like, but the commute is when I'm alone and I get to listen to stuff in my helmet. Like it's great.
And so it's just this perception. I mean, I guess I have like a different tool to go about it, but like even just the AirPod, it made me think of the AirPods. It's like one simple change. It's like, oh, you can listen to music on the trip, and then it's infinitely better. It's just like play podcasts while moving. You already have the AirPods. Just like one simple change. I guess it's not as much like a reframing. A better reframe is like, you know, when we're traveling in weird countries, I know in Europe it's happened sometimes, in Africa, like you'll get off the plane and you go on the tarmac and it's like, oh, we got to go on a shuttle. The fuck is this?
Yeah.
Just bring me to that little walking, whatever you
moving
call it.
walkway. Just take me there.
Yeah. I just want to go right in.
Oh, the jet, the whatever.
But then Rory Sutherland was on a flight and he heard this brilliant reframe. The pilot, he comes on the intercom and he's like, I have good news and I have bad news.
You mean I have good news and I have bad news?
I just
give it to him.
I have good news and I have bad news. And one, that's a great way to start because people love that little balance because it sounds like if you're a salesman, add the bad just so people trust you more.
Yeah.
So he's like, the bad news is we don't have this moving walkway. We're going to have to take a shuttle. The good news is the shuttle is going to bring you right to immigration.
Ah.
And so everyone's like, oh, I never even thought about that. Like it drops you off.
Huh.
It might drop you off in some terminal like in Germany when we get to that terminal and it was like 1,000 miles away from everything else.
Yeah.
Like here, the bus just brings you right to immigration. You don't have to walk.
You know, life can be reframed. Did you know that? Did you know that? This is like a Naval, like happiness is a skill. You can practice it. Like no matter what your circumstances, like you can practice to be happy. It's the reason he says like, well, if you're so smart, why aren't you happy? You can reframe everything.
That was
This was A.J.
Man's Search
Jacobs'
for
book.
Meaning. It's
Man's
every
Search-
book out there.
Yeah, it's like it's every book. It's every book written by somebody who's found happiness.
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, you could be mad. You know, I could be mad. It took me an extra hour at Menards today because like one thing was misplaced or this, and that. Or I got down to the subway and just as the doors are closing. But we don't remember all the times you get to the subway just as a train's pulling up.
Mm.
Or I go to Menards and everything's where. So we highlight that bad because it sucks. But you can just flip the script and just be happy. Like it was just more time for me to listen to a book at Menards.
Well, I'm waiting, preparing for the podcast. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And my favorite example is the Jocko Willink YouTube video. Good.
Good. I've not seen this.
Anytime some shit happens to you, you just say the word good and you rationalize.
Oh, yeah,
from
we
it.
have talked about
And this is kind of like the book is like people just want to rationalize everything.
that. Uh-huh.
It's like backwards rationalizing shit. Like it works super well. Oh, this is a good point. Okay. I mean, no, I know we're on tangent after tangent,
No,
but
this
like
is great.
good points. One great point from this book is that all that really matters is the behavior. Like the reason, the why behind that behavior doesn't matter at all.
And actions speak louder than words. Doesn't matter what someone says they're going to do. Just the behavior is what
Yeah, look
matters.
at you add another conversation. But for example, like back in the day, people used to just like shit in the streets and there was no indoor plumbing. It was just chaos. But then someone came and they're like, hey, we can bring the toilet indoors. And people didn't do that with the intention of like, oh, that's going to reduce cholera in our cities. That's going to be a lot better. No, they did it because it was badass if you had a porcelain toilet in the middle of your house and you didn't have to go outside or poop in a bucket. And so it was this status symbol. And now everyone wanted that high status. So they all started buying toilets. And now cholera goes down. So like the public health, good way to do it is just like appeal to the status. And guess what? The side effects are public health.
Was that in the book?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Everything's in the book. You just
No,
don't-
everything
you just
has
don't read
not
it.
been in the book.
Here's another one good from the book.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not going to stop, even though I had to go to the bathroom. But guess what?
No,
The
I want
pod's
to
more
break 2
important.
hours today.
Yep. So, reframing. How about this? Taxes. Taxes, we talked about it on the last podcast where I was all fed up because I'm like, oh, I got to pay like 40, 50% of my income in taxes. One, I was kind of wrong, but it's still close. It's like a lot in fucking taxes. But he's like, what if we just reframed?
I'm listening, by the
How
way.
we
I'm
pay
going to
taxes.
try and pull up a TikTok that I thought was really funny, but
Well,
go ahead.
You're only at 40% listening, but that's all right. The listeners,
No,
100%
I'm listening.
are-
I'm listening.
So, a reframe on taxes. Let's go to the cooler example. 1813. We are in Prussia. You know where Prussia is?
Isn't it Poland, Russia?
No, but it sounds like it could be.
No, it
But-
totally is.
I mean, maybe
It's
it
in between
includes,
them.
I guess, I mean, I picture Germany.
Did I just school you?
I don't think so.
Why do you think it's called Prussia?
Because they
Oh,
broke
I'm
up.
on my phone. Might as well fact check. Here
No,
we go.
Well, all right, let's call it Germany.
Is Prussia?
And then you have Napoleon, right?
Let's
So-
call it Germany. Oh, it's a historically prominent German state. I
just
don't
be
know.
wrong on the air.
I don't mind.
All right. Guess what? So Prussia, where the fuck that is, they're getting invaded or they're fighting Napoleon, the French army. And they need to raise funds. And so what are you going to say? Oh, there's a war tax. Well, there's a war tax. Everyone's going to be like, oh, fuck that war tax. Like,
Fuck
that's
taxes.
just stupid. Everyone hates taxes. But what they did was ingenious. They're like, you know what?
You know where I
When
got
you-
confused? You know where I got confused?
God damn.
After World War II, most of Prussia was annexed by Poland and Russia. So why was it called Prussia before that?
No, that's another podcast. Although
the
I
Prussia
do-
podcast.
Disunited Nations, I do want to talk about. That's a great book.
Good, carry
Okay.
on. I found
Carrying
the
on.
TikTok. By
They
the
are
way.
fighting and they have to raise funds. All right. You're going to tax it. People are just not going to want to contribute much to taxes. You want people to be voluntarily giving to taxes. So what they do is they say every time you donate, say $1 million or whatever the number is, that's a lot back then, like $1,000, you get a little piece of iron Iron, important. Iron jewelry. Like iron. What the fuck? Iron's worth literally nothing. We talked about that before. They had to have sleeves of iron that weighed like 14
It's
pounds.
just dragging their iron.
The Mongols! That episode, we'll put a little over
Something.
lay or something.
You're not
but-
going to do it. Okay.
Okay, so the point is, it's worth nothing, but they tell people, hey, if you donate, we'll give you this. And on it, it says, I'm supporting the war effort. And now all these high status elites replace their gold jewelry with this iron jewelry at parties. Because guess what? Oh, I donated $10,000 worth. Look at all my jewelry. I'm supporting the cause. And they make it this super patriotic status symbol.
And now we're taking a TikTok break about taxes. I think you'll like this. You should watch it.
We were talking about new podcast formats. What if we just did 6-hour podcasts?
Yeah, you can listen. It's an ebook in and of itself.
I know. I did
Okay,
listen in 3
are you
hours.
ready? I'm gonna record my screen so you can put this in the video, and it's just another reason for
look
people
at
to
you
watch.
thinking.
We're gonna go so long, all the cameras cut off, and it's just gonna be audio again.
Oh, true. It's only that.
Okay, ready? I'm gonna put this in front of the mic too.
Years old. This is my first time paying taxes. I really don't know what I'm doing. Can you tell me how much I owe and I'll just pay it? No, we can't do that. You have to figure out that amount for yourself. Oh, okay. Well, if I'm just a little bit off in the amount I owe, it'll be okay because it's my first time, right? Oh, no, we already know how much you owe exactly. I mean, down to the penny, but you still have to figure that out for yourself. Well, what if I get that amount wrong? You go to federal prison. What? Hi, I'm 18 years old.
So that's just a conversation between this 18-year-old who's also playing the IRS agent, and it's so true. I don't know what that had to do.
I like how the agent looked. That shit's funny.
It's like we know exactly what you need to do, but
And
we're not going to tell you.
You know why? It's because the little Intuit, what do they call those people? Lobbyists. Intuit lobbyists are like, no, we can't have the whole opt-out tax. Like, we already know how much you're paying, like they said. This is a total tangent, but we already know how much you're paying. And then there's literally no need to do taxes if you're a W-2 person.
Oh yeah, you just.
It's
you
like
just,
everyone knows all this shit.
Yeah, it's just a number. It's one number. Yeah.
It's just fake.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
You got
So
other quotes?
reframing. Let me just look because there's so many juicy.
I'm nervous. I'm gonna say it. I'm nervous for the last tidbit here.
Oh, okay. One real quick one.
I think this is such a long podcast because we're postponing the last tidbit.
I know. And we're just going to cut. Yeah. That's the thing. The audience is just going to hear a cut and it's the end of the podcast because we fucked it up
The
again.
fourth time.
Okay. Real quick. Adding perception because people hate uncertainty. Uncertainty? Oh, that's what. Okay. Risk minimization, uncertainty. People hate uncertainty. They hate risk.
Yes.
Okay, that's two big takeaways.
I love uncertainty, but
Uber, people love the little Uber maps.
Mhm.
Like that was an ingenious invention because you could see where your car is. You're like, oh, I can, chill.
you know
go to
it
the bathroom,
sucks. In the
pick up my
exact
car.
same vein, DoorDash's maps aren't that good. It just kind of tells you an ETA. It sucks,
There you go.
and it's like a car on a map that's not moving in real time.
Okay, totally a side tangent. Let's get into the cards, Belky. Let me.
Oh,
take
that
a
was it
drink
for
of
that
water. Yeah, it's basically like it's infinitely better than a taxi, even if the taxi shows up super quickly, because you know exactly when it's going to come. You can prepare for it.
All right, the moment we've all been waiting for. Dylan Jardon.
You, Henry Belcaster, have 4 cards.
Wait, the backstory is perception is fucked. Perception is
it's
fucked.
all in the framing.
We're
of
going to
things.
pitch a thought experiment in 2 frames. I bet you I know the answer, but one of them's going to be easier to understand, and they're the same thought experiment, just a different frame.
and we'll say why it's important after. 4 cards. Each has a front and a back, as a usual card would.
Mm-hmm.
On one side, you have a number. It can either be odd or even. Or just
Easy.
All numbers can. Okay.
All numbers can.
On the other side,
No, it's odd, even, and slooper. Go on.
it's irrational. No.
Oh, no.
Okay. Detracting. 4 cards. One side has a number. The other side has a color. The color can either be blue or green.
Great.
Okay.
This is great. What 4 cards are on the table, Dylan?
We have a 5,
Okay.
an 8, a green, and a blue.
Okay.
That's what you can see. You can't see the other side.
And what are we trying to invalidate?
We have this rule that if the card is even, the other side of the card is blue.
That's the rule. That is the rule. That's the law.
If it's even, the other side is blue. What cards do we have to flip over to test this rule?
Yeah. I think why it got so confusing, and I think what he did in the book is, I think he actually said, how do you invalidate the rule?
I literally wrote down what cards to test the rule.
Okay.
I had to write it down so I didn't fuck that part up.
And what do you want me to do? Do you want me to say what I said yesterday, or let's just say it's very hard to do.
It's hard. We couldn't figure it out. It's just this super abstract thing.
It's also really hard to do on the spot. We found out.
Yeah, we did. Dude, we only had 5 minutes of recording, but that episode went on for like 22 minutes just because we were trying to figure this out.
Sat here.
So try it in your head. It's probably difficult.
One more time.
We'll say the answer.
The cards
after.
are 5, 8, green, blue on the table.
Right.
What do you have to flip over
to test the rule?
To test the rule, which is even cards are blue.
Yeah.
Correct?
The other side of the even card is blue.
Okay. People are gonna be like in their car, like also not able to do this.
I know.
But yeah.
Pause it.
Okay.
Try it out. Here is the other way of looking at a similar problem. 4 cards. One side of the card is an age, and the other side of the card is a drink. It can either be alcoholic or non-alcoholic. And we are trying to test the rule that you have to be over 21 years old to drink.
Yes.
Alcohol, that is.
Yes.
Important.
The law is you have to be 21 to drink alcohol.
Yes.
Okay.
The first card, we have a 15-year-old. The second card, we have a 25-year-old. The third card, we have a Coca-Cola. The fourth card, we have a Jack Daniels.
And this, on the episode, and I guess kind of David last night, in order to figure out if it's true that you have to be 21 to drink, we both pretty quickly were like, well, you check the 15-year-old. And I forget the other one.
Just think.
Oh, you check the 15-year-old. If the 15-year-old's got a drink, then you flip the alcohol card.
Yeah.
Okay. And the point is, the other 2 cards don't much matter.
Yeah, like if you flip the non-alcoholic drink, that tells you nothing. It could be any age can drink a non-alcoholic drink. You flip the 25-year-old, well, he can already legally drink.
Right.
That tells you nothing if he has alcoholic or non-alcoholic.
Right. So what I took from this mostly, tried to wrap it up in a bundle on the podcast yesterday is, well, maybe I still don't understand why we do this. I guess perception matters.
Let me give the answer to the other one, I guess. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's more abstract. It's literally the same. But if it's even, the other side is blue, you're going to check the even. Because if it's green, then you're like, this rule is fucking void. And then, unlike what most people say, they're like, check the blue.
You're going to check the even card.
Check the even card.
If it's green, rule doesn't work.
That's easy.
If it's blue, rule still holds.
Right. Nothing. It's just still in place.
So we need one more card.
Most people say check the blue card. But what happens? You flip to the other side of the blue. It says nothing about if it's odd. That tells you nothing. Like if you flip it and it's a 7, well, the rule isn't if it's odd, it's also blue. Like we have no idea what that rule is. You should check the green. Because if they flip the green and it's even, then you know the rule is bunk.
Right.
Because even should be blue.
You invalidate it.
But it's a lot harder to perceive that. And so the whole thing is it's easier in that little social scenario to envision it. And there are multiple ways of framing every single product, every single offer that you have. You can say in the easier way that people can conceptualize, they can see the value, they can see the answer in one way where they can't. It's just this fucking crazy abstract thing that ruins a podcast in the other one.
Oof.
God, I'm still getting like PTSD.
I know. I'm still sitting here now. Like I don't have the same epiphany as you.
There were like 6 points in this book where like, oh.
Why was this one so Because
it's all these counterintuitive ideas.
Because you got it right away when it was a drinking thing, when it was a social thing.
Yeah, I'm like, check the 15-year-old, check the person with alcohol.
Yeah.
It was like super fast for me. Maybe he just explained it better. But I had no idea. Because the first one to me was like the stupid math counts in 7th grade where I couldn't do it because I just couldn't envision it.
Yeah.
But once you saw it, it was super simple.
Yeah.
And now I saw it in the.
It's like a form of inversion. I love doing this in any problem solving. It's like, oh, this thing we're working on right now, it's not working in the reference frame of chemistry. All right, how can we think about this in terms of, I don't know, in terms of swimming? Just like something completely different. Our friend Brian does this really well. It's just like, here's the thing everyone thinks the same about. Let's think about it in like just a completely different light. And then you have the insights.
And
Feynman did that. Einstein did that.
I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up on this topic. It's asking dumb questions.
Oh, nice.
That's kind of what we were talking about with the podcast too. Like there are a lot of questions people are just too afraid to ask. I remember this kid, my friend, who I'm still friends with, call him Lobo. He would always ask the dumbest questions in class.
I bet he's smarter than you now.
No, he's
Okay.
still. I think he's still in college because he's still asking questions.
Well, then,
But here's the point though. He would ask dumb questions, and 90% of the time they are like most people know the answer. But one, there are people in the class that don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And then 10% of the time he asks a brilliant, accidentally, most likely, brilliant question that everyone's like, oh wow, I never thought about that.
And that dumb question that ends up being brilliant is like 10x everything else.
Right. It opens the door. It's that epiphany moment. And you would have never gotten there if you don't take those risks. And so that's basically Rory's job as, did we even talk about who the fuck he is? I know we said it in the last part, but he's Ogilvy and Mather. I think it's Mather. Ogilvy,
Didn't know yesterday.
biggest advertising
Don't
group.
know today.
He's a vice president or something. He's like super high up. But his job is basically to ask the silly questions like, hey, why do people brush their teeth? Oh, it's not to have clean teeth. It's just to have that minty, like it smells good for the opposite sex or people around you. Or like, why do people hate standing up on trains? Maybe just because it's like a
Oh, that
low
was
status
great.
position. I do love that.
That was great. What I got from that is it's not just one reason people don't do it. Like they're just a million. Like just keep asking.
Yeah, it's basically the 5 whys sort of thing to get to the first principles. It's the same thing here. It's like ask why. Oh, why do people hate standing on a train? I don't know, because like you look like shit when everyone's sitting by a window seat in their nice seats and they have everything. Oh, well, what if we put those in the middle, right? So they don't have the window. The people standing have the window, and then we put like, oh, why don't they stand even if it was at the window? Because it hurts. What if we had a little butt rest? You could tripod yourself, and then you can use your hands.
Yeah.
It's like all these different solutions you never would have thought about just by asking the stupid, dumb why question.
We should have our parents on here. That's what I'm sitting here thinking.
I
about.
remember I asked Slick Rick, maybe we talked about it on the podcast, but I think we did. He just wants to go by cash because he's fed up with insurance because he has a chiropractic practice. It's just always a headache. It means he needs to hire more people.
Chiropractic practice.
Oh, I only said he's a chiropractor.
No, you said it, but we could just, what's that called? Something
Amalgam?
No,
Oh,
it's when you put two words together. Satisfices this thing. Portmanteau.
you're just making up more
So
words.
late in the podcast, just portmanteau.
I really wanted
Chiropractic.
to. I wanted to have this clip. I forgot to like say it, but The Wolf of Wall Street, that scene, like, and it's a fugazi. Like all this shit is just a fugazi, but because it's a placebo, this shit works. It's not. Slick, I wanted to just wrap that up real quick. He's like, I just want to go by cash, and I just asked him, why don't you? And he's like, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And that was only the first tier of whys. He just
The reason I want to have my dad on here is because I was conscious at a young age of just being relentless with asking questions. I was so obnoxiously, why? But why? 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 And I want to see if he also knew that or if I've constructed this thing in my head.
And what happened?
He would answer him. And that was the brilliance of my dad and I's relationship. It's like he took me there. He took me to all those mental model first principles places where I asked my mom why 3 times in a row. It's because I said so. Two completely different people. So interesting.
I want to do it more often.
We talked about this. The because I said so means something is an assumption that some society has, some societal assumption that isn't necessarily true. Or that's how I should describe my house. People always ask me like, I had a doctor mom and kind of an entrepreneurial dad. But no, it's like I had a first principles dad and an assumptions mom when I asked all these why questions. You got something? You got one more little... We're here. We record once a week.
I really...
Get it out. Get it out. It's therapy.
I liked how it's like people have evolved to be irrational. Because guess what? If you're predictable in nature, you get eaten.
Mm-hmm.
You get fucked. If you're the hare or you're the monkey, run on the savannah and they know where you're going to turn, bam.
Irrational pessimists.
You really you hear a word and you're like, I connect this word with that one.
No, because there's that book, Rational Optimist. We should write one about irrational pessimists.
But here's the point, though.
People are pessimists for
like
the same reason.
people want to default to optimism. That's why they rationalize a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Okay.
Yeah.
With the herd, here's another little thing. Oh, so that was like in favor of Donald Trump and being irrational. Like, I'm gonna build that wall. And you're like, dude, no, you're not gonna build that wall. But in the back of your head, there's like 10% chance this dude actually tries to build that fucking wall and have Mexico pay for it. That's insane. But everyone has that same 10%. Maybe it's even higher for certain people. Now you're gonna behave
Guess
in a way.
what, people?
Game theory.
Yes, you're
fucks
gonna behave in a weird way. Also, 10% things happen. They
you.
happen
Yes.
often.
Everything we talked about in the last week, we're just shoving
Shove it in
into
here.
this podcast.
I
baby.
told you, like, people got so mad at Nate Silver. I don't know where this came from, but you read a book and then everything starts becoming that book. People got so mad at Nate Silver in 2016 because Hillary had a 70% chance of winning and Trump had a 30% chance. Oh, I know where I heard this. Different podcast. No, different book. The Big Bluff by Maria. I don't know her last name. Guess what? 30%? That's a 1 in 3. That happens. And we often mistake something like 70 or even like a 51%. We mistake that for all the time, for 100%. That's a big pitfall. How did I get there?
I don't know. Should I mention this?
Yeah,
other
come
thing?
on.
Okay, so
Get
it's
it
like
in there. Leah's here. Leah.
mention it every podcast. So we have our little herd, and it gets back into our herd mentality. Like, why do people go with the herd? Well, we go with the herd because if there's a predator outside, a cheetah, a lion, whatever it is, now you have 1,000 eyes looking all around. Someone's gonna catch some sight of this thing and just run, and you're gonna be like, all right, I'm just in the pack, I run. Whereas, well, the problem there is like there's 1,000 things eating grass in this 1 acre of territory, whatever it is. You're just gonna get shit food, but that's fine. Like, you're not optimizing there. Whereas, hey, if you went outside the herd, you could go even 10 meters outside. You get, I mean, we saw in Africa, you could go fucking 5 feet away and you get the freshest grass, the best food, plentiful supply, but no one's watching for you. Or,
True.
you know, the cheetah or lion, whatever, could be right there, and then you just get weeded.
That's the thing, though. In the modern world, like, folks, Dylan, whoever's here, we're not in the jungle anymore. Like, we're in New York City. It's just safe, you know? Like, it's safer than it's ever been.
So that's the problem. I'll cut in because I know
Help me
you're
out.
struggling.
Help me
That's
out.
the problem is,
No,
you know,
it's-
we got
the
the
thing
monkey,
is-
all this
yeah.
evolutionary shit, all this baggage from before. It works well in certain areas. It doesn't in others. Learn how to use them to your advantage, because most people aren't. They're just going with the herd, or they're just getting,
What I was trying
they're
to say
not
is-
getting their product
yeah.
out there because they don't know how to speak
Yeah.
to people.
Oh, nice. I was saying the herd, it just doesn't hold true anymore. Well, that was Alchemy. And a whole bunch of other awesomeness
Hey,
by Rory Sutherland.
I wonder if anyone, if anyone made it to the card thing, because it took us, how long is this?
This is great.
Wow, that was a solid hour plus. Jesus. There's a lot there. I'm curious if anyone actually figured it out with the logic side with the cards
I
versus.
still haven't.
I know.
I'm glad
it
we
was
saved
clear.
it for last.
I mean, you guessed right, I guess. There's
It's
just
like-
so much. I love this book. I love everything about it. His voice is so amazing. He's this British dude. Great accent. Smart dude. Listen to him on podcasts all over. Listen to the audiobook if you're going to listen to this. Alchemy. Again, it's
yeah,
I don't know. Some people love it. Some people hate it.
I was
loved
just
it.
gonna
Henry
say,
hated
and
it.
I won't recommend it, but that's okay. That's okay. We read everything.
All right. See you next time.